Hello, everybody. I'm Ruta Lee, and I happen to be with Les Britton, who happens to do the most wonderful show for your ears, and it's called Flashback, and boy, oh boy, am I glad to be part of that Flashback.
Hello, 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 everyone. Wes Britton here with a very special guest named Ruta Lee, and we're going to talk a lot about, oh, what a career, the people she has known, the people she has worked with, the films she has made, the TV shows she's appeared in, the stage, well, I could go on, and I probably will. Well, I'll let her do all that in just a moment. But first, I wanted to tell you why I just played you that song segment we did about the June bride. That's because I'm married to a June bride. Grace and I got married on June the 11th, 2022. We just celebrated our first-year anniversary. I guess we're still qualified as newlyweds. So that's proof positive that you can start all over again. And I just heard that song. Went, yep, that's the one. We got to start with that. I don't guess that's Ruta's signature song per se. I'm guessing, What would you say your signature song is, Ruta? Do you have one?
I don't really have one. I should have one, but there are so many wonderful songs that I lay claim to that were either my favorites for some reason or were written by somebody that I knew. But June Bride, of course, they say when you marry in June, was from the first movie that I ever did, one of the great films of all time.
Absolutely true.
Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. And I'm very happy to say, Les, that two movies that I certainly didn't star in but was certainly in and an important part of are claimed to be two of the top 100 ever made in Hollywood. Seven Brides is one. The other is Witness for the Prosecution, which is a Billy Wilder film.
Oh, yes.
With Tyrone Power and Marlene Dietrich and Charles Lawton and me.
Yeah, of course.
Happy to say.
Well, we don't want to leave out Funny Face. That was one of your early successes, too, wasn't it?
Yes, of course. Working with Audrey Hepburn was a delight. And, of course, getting to meet and know and continue having as a friend for all of his life, and so far mine, was Fred Astaire. And oh my Lord, what a lovely gentleman he was. He's just an amazing person. His his daughter became a very good friend of mine, and she lives in Palm Springs, where I have a second home. And so we fortunately get to see each other. She lived in Ireland for a long time. Next door to Angela Lansbury. So that kind of there was Hollywood in Ireland, it was very nice.
I get the impression reading around that both Fred and Gene Kelley really, really worked you out on dancing moves.
Well, I'll tell you what, Gene Kelley worked me out on bedroom moves.
Okay.
Sounds better than it really is. I was playing this marvelous little tart in the film Marjorie Morningstar.
Yeah.
With darling Natalie Wood. And obviously we are having an affair, Gene and I, in this film, and Natalie comes upon me in his apartment while he isn't there. So it was great fun to think about that. Then the other side of the Gene Kelley story, and I always say he slept in my bed, because not just in the movies, but he used to rent my little house in Palm Springs and have it for a long weekend or something or other, and therefore he slept in my big king-size bed. So I thought about that quite often every time I piled into bed and thought, Gene slept here.
Oh, yeah, that's a memory that you didn't have, but it's a memory to talk about. Well, tell everybody how you picked the title for your new memoir. Because that, by the way, folks, let me just say right off the bat that Consider Your Ass Kissed is one of the best memoirs I have ever read. If you're interested in Hollywood history, if you're interested in any of the names that you'll be hearing today, if you're just Hollywood history, period, this book is it. It is an absolute treasury from start to finish. It's a very hard book to put down, very, very readable. So back to you, Ruta. Why that title?
Oh, my, first of all, thank you for that beautiful, beautiful description. The title basically is an expression that I have used for many years. As you know, Debbie Reynolds and I, God bless her soul, were the Mother Superiors of an organization called the Thalians.
Yeah, I was waiting to get into that I guess we want to talk about that for a while, I'm sure.
We will.
Yeah.
But the Thalians, of course, has for years, for now almost 70 years, been Hollywood for mental health. And we raised money by doing great big huge all-star shows and events that honored somebody wonderful in our business. And, of course, the whole point of doing this was to raise money for our mental health problems and projects. And anytime anybody gave me $5, $500, $500,000, the expression I would use from stage when I was thanking them is, oh, please consider your ass kissed. And our darling friend, and like one of my kids almost, George Pinocchio, who is the red carpet man for ABC television. He does all the events and is their Hollywood reporter, was like one of my kids, and he said, Ruta, if you ever write a book, that should be the title. And I took what he said seriously and used it. And now there are some places where people down south that are still of a slightly different era kind of won't say the word. They won't say it on television. They won't say ass.
It sounds like my mom and dad.
Well, but I always say, listen, if Jesus could ride into Jerusalem on his ass, I can kiss it. So I don't think people should take offense. I don't mean offense. It comes from the bottom of my loving heart, and that's what I want people to know. And therefore, it's tongue-in-cheek for a book title.
Yeah.
And thank you for saying that, because I do talk about everybody I ever knew in Hollywood a little bit, and I don't have anything rotten to say about anybody.
No, it's
one or two people I might get saucy about, but that's it.
Saucy, now that's a good adjective. I like that one. One of my favorite lines that popped up throughout your book was, I could have been Mrs. fill in the blank. You had a whole string of those, and I kept thinking, if I was just a tad bit older, I could have been Mr. Ruta Lee. But...
Yes, you could have. Oh, Brett, but I'd take your name. It's a good one.
Oh, Britain. Okay, well, a little late now, because as we just said, I'm a newlywed.
Yeah, now, what is your bride's name?
Grace.
Oh, what a wonderful name. Oh, to be blessed with that name means to be blessed with the quality that it represents. That's nice.
She makes a well, I'm glad we can get all these nice things to say about her, because, well, the last time we really got to talk about her was I did an interview with Loretta Swit.
Oh, I love her.
And I met her at a nostalgia convention. And we came up and I wanted to tell her about this radio show and line her up with an interview. She didn't care to talk to me about that. She kept looking at Grace's blouse. Where did you get that? Where did you get that? She was fixated on it. And it was just something that Grace bought at Boscov's, a local department store. But it was just really kind of funny. Radio show, to heck with that. I want that blouse.
Well, I want to meet Grace, and I'd like to see that blouse, too. And do you ever come out west? Do you come my way?
No. In fact, I've never been to California in my life so far.
Oh, for heaven's sake, then it's time to take a trip, and if you do, you have an open invitation to come on up, and I'll pour you a glass of wine or 10.
Yeah.
And
I like the 10 idea.
And we'll meet. I'd love to meet Grace, or I'll come your way one of these days.
Yeah, I don't know what the odds would be of us getting out to the West Coast. It's just, I don't know. I turned 70 in September, and I've never been out west, and that's just no further than Colorado.
Well, it's time, child, before you become 70, for heaven's sake.
Well, we'll see how that goes. Well, before I lose some of these questions and stories I want to tell us about, share with us your connection to Lithuania and one of your co-stars over the years, Nikita Kruschev. How did that come about?
I am of Lithuanian descent. My mom and dad were born, raised, and married in Lithuania. When they wanted to, as all wise people in Europe, when they wanted to come to the United States, the quotas for Lithuanians were closed, so my father took a job in the next best thing as far as he was concerned, which was Canada, and it was. Canada was exceedingly good to my parents. He took a job working in the wheat fields of Canada for a year, saved up the money, and then brought my mother over, and eventually I was born in Montreal, Canada, and did the first early years of growing up there in Montreal. When we moved to Hollywood, all because my mother, who was the furthest thing from a stage mother imaginable, didn't know anything about theater, but she did know about movies. And my kindergarten teacher, to whom I owe my entire career, had said to my mother, "Mary, your daughter is a little different from the rest of the kids in my classes. So give her lessons. Give her music lessons, dancing lessons, whatever you can afford." And my mother did, God love her. And when we moved to Hollywood, of course, my career began, and it was all thanks to Mrs. Jackson and the teachers that I had and my mother. I did okay in the business growing up,
yeah.
And I was very, very much aware of my grandparents, the only ones that were still living, who had been deported or sent to Siberia. For what cause, I don't know. They were not intellectuals or teachers or artists. They were little farm folk. Their prized possession was a cow. And they were sent to Siberia and never knew the reasons why. Excuse me. And there, my grandfather's legs were frozen on the cattle car that they were being deported on. When they took off his boots at one of the stations, the flesh came off with it. Gangrene had set in. He died. My grandmother didn't even know. She was sent on to further reaches of Siberia. And when I tracked my grandmother down, thanks to my mother and the Red Cross, she was there, and I started trying to get her out. And in the United States, I was the one that did it because I was the first to become a citizen of the United States. And I was still a kid when I started doing this, making out visovs. And visovs are letters that have to be written in the language that you're reaching the person, Lithuanian, English, and Russian. So I had to find somebody to translate this and do it. And then the visov had to be notarized. The notary seal had to be approved by the city. The city seal had to be approved by the state seal. And then the whole thing had to be approved by the State Department. So the ribbons on this thing were about 6 inches thick by the time you got finished. And then you sent that to the local commissar in the Soviet Union where where my grandmother was. They would look at it, get very impressed by all the ribbons, say nip, and 6 months later I had to start all over again. This went on for 12 years.
Oh.
And finally, we got a letter from my aunt who wrote for my grandmother because my grandmother never had gone to school, never learned to read or write. And she was saying that my grandma was thanking us for the things that we had sent that she could be buried in, and this would probably be her last letter, and blah, blah, blah. And I came home from work one night, and my mother was in a spate of tears, and I read the letter, and I went into a spate of tears. My one remaining grandparent was now maybe dead for all we knew, because it took about 6 weeks for a letter to get to us. And I went out with friends that night, and the more wine they poured, the more evident it became that I should do something quite dramatic. So I picked up the phone, and I made, I don't know if you remember this, person-to-person call.
Oh, yes, I remember those.
You paid double for it, but you didn't pay if you didn't get your party.
Yep.
I made a person-to-person call to Nikita Kruschev, the Kremlin, Moscow, USSR. And the operator said to me, "How do you spell Khrushchev?"
Oh, good grief.
Oh, God, I was ready to die. Anyway,
that is hard to believe.
Long back and forth, and the Russian operators, no, not available, no, the Mr. Khrushchev, no, speak it, no. This went on for hours, and now I was beginning to sober up a little bit. And in the meantime, I had called the Russian embassy in Washington. And, of course, you try to get through there. You get the gardener, you get the window washer, you get the upstairs maid, you get the cook. I spoke with everybody, and it was niet. Anyway, finally the Russian operator gets back online and says, "Mr. Khrushchev no speak it English. You speak it with Mr. Rorishov, interpreter for Mr. Khrushchev." And I said yes, because I remembered that he was a very attractive young man that traveled with Khrushchev when he was here banging his shoe on the podium, you know.
Oh, yes.
And my father used to laugh because he was fluent in Russian, and he would say, "Khrushchev didn't say that. He made it, the interpreter made it very palatable for our Victorian ears, you know." And so I said, yes, I'll speak with him. And he said, "Miss Lee, we're very happy to talk to you. We see your movies here."
Let's say by that point you were a pretty well-known celebrity, weren't you?
I was beginning to be, you know, yes. And I said, he said, "What can I do for you?" I said, "I want to come to Lithuania, which was a very closed country. If you were a very, very high Communist Party official, maybe you'd be allowed, but nobody else traveled to any of the satellite countries, like Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania." So I said, "I want to come and see my grandmother. I don't even know if she's alive. If she's not alive, I'll go to her burial site. And what's more, I want to bring my mother and father." And the State Department had told me, "Don't take your parents no matter what, because they can't detain you because you were American-born as far as they're concerned. But your parents were Lithuanian-born, and they could be detained."
Ouch.
But I thought, God is not going to be that cruel.
Oh.
Anyway, so he said, "Well, this is all fine and good, but why don't you speak to your congressman about it?" And at this point, because I was getting sober, I said, "What in hell does my congressman have to do with my coming to your country? This is not a matter of politics. This is a matter of the heart. Please help me." He said, "Present yourself to the Russian embassy in 30 minutes. I thought, hell, here we go again. You know, I'll get pushed around. But this time when I called, miraculously, I was connected immediately to the first secretary at the embassy, and he happened to be Lithuanian, and I am fairly fluent in Lithuanian, and we had a nice chat, and long story short, 48 hours later, I was on a plane headed for Moscow, then back to Lithuania to see my grandmother, where we found her in a hospital, and they were so good to me. Of course, Jimmy Bacon, who was then the head writer for AP Wire Services, had lunch with me and did a story that I never saw because it was out in the press while I was on the plane to Moscow. And the story was, you know, a young Hollywood starlet goes to rescue grandmother, and this whole thing about the Soviet Union and me and Hollywood, and it made every front page, I think, of every paper in the world. Well, what in the hell were the Russians going to do? When I say the Russians, I don't mean that. I mean the communist authorities. What were they going to do but be nice to me, and make
the whole world is watching.
Yeah, and so I got permission while I was there to bring my grandmother back with me, but not then because she wasn't well enough to travel then. 6 months later, I went back and repeated this whole adventure, and this time brought my grandmother home to the United States.
How old was she?
We don't know because she lied about her age, but we assume like 95 or something like that.
Goodness.
This little old lady, Les, this is the thing that kills me. We didn't have jetways then. This was, the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
She went down the stairs, dropped to her knees on the tarmac, kissed the ground, and said, "Allo, America."
Yeah, that's a powerful moment.
Oh, it brings me to tears. Oh, I'm doing it now every time I think about it, how much she appreciated. And I think about so many of our current young people who don't know diddly squat about what communism is, and how socialism is the first rung of that ladder of communism. And everybody is so entitled in our world, they don't realize how bloody lucky they are to be in America.
I second that emotion 100%. I don't know how we ever can follow up that story, because that is a knockout. Well, I'll try with a couple.
Okay, honey, here we go.
Well, I don't think we can possibly cover your TV show history with all the shows you were on.
Over 2,500.
That's. Can you give us a quick overview of some of your highlights of your TV years?
Well, there were some shows that I particularly loved doing. I loved working with all the guys on Bonanza. Oh. When we did that. I loved working on Perry Mason. That whole gang was so wonderful. I loved working on Twilight Zone. That was one of my very favorite shows, and I became one of the favorites of the author of that, and found that to be kind of a great experience.
Rod Serling.
Rod Serling, yeah. I had dinner with him a couple of times in New York. He was absolutely the most delightful, wonderful, witty, and brilliant man, but he was also a heavy-duty smoker. Okay. One cigarette going out lit the other one, and I couldn't take doing dinner with him very often because he smoked so much. And, of course, it's what killed him. Yeah. And I just remind that to all your listeners. I'm not putting down smoking, but I am. I want everybody to live long, healthy lives. Oh,
I agree with you. I quit back in 2017.
God bless you. Oh, I'm so proud of you. That's great, honey. That's just great. Because it's got to be hard to quit. I know it is.
It is. You got to have motivation.
Yes, you do. Oh. Anyway, I loved, what I really loved were the game shows.
I was about to get to, you got to talk about Alex Trebek.
Oh, one of my best buddies. I love the game shows because people got to know me, Ruta Lee, as myself, or as the crazy player and energetic player on a game show, and not one of the wonderful characters that I got to play, and I played everything from sweet mothers to drunken whores to addicts. One day I was driving home from the studio, and the makeup people had done a great job of marking up my arms because I was supposed to be a heavy drug user, And so I still had, like, the little scabs and the scars and the lines on my arms, and I got
trails
for a red light ticket or something. I can't remember what. And the cop looked at my arms, and I had to spit on them and say, "Listen, that's not the real thing. I'm in the movies." I had to talk my way out of that. But I loved all the shows that I ever did. I mean, some of them were very hard work. Some of them were lots of laughs along the way. It's all hard work, no matter what. Making movies and television shows is not easy. It all looks easy when you're sitting in the chair watching, sipping your beer or glass of wine, but it's hard work.
Well, you got a lot of achievements to show for your stage work, too, don't you?
Isn't that grand?
Yeah.
Oh, I just... You know, television is wonderful because it reaches millions of people with the same breath that you take. Movies are wonderful because they take more time to pin things down and rehearse and get things right. But there is nothing as wondrous as working in front of a live audience, feeling that audience breathe with you, sigh with you, cry with you, and above all, laugh with you. And to get a standing ovation at the end of a performance is just the most thrilling thing that can happen. And the next best thing is getting a check at the end of the week.
I'm not sure those are in the right order, but I think they're close. Which of your musicals were your favorite? Because you scored quite a number of the big ones.
I've done them practically all. Anything that was not written for a soprano, you know, I could never do The Music Man or well, maybe I could do Evita. She doesn't have to be up there, but I guess I would have to say that my favorite was Molly Brown. It was also probably one of the hardest roles to play, but I was rewarded so with the audiences every night. And then this extra special award was that Meredith Willson, who wrote Molly Brown, who wrote The Music Man, came to see the show, and he put this in a press story that he did, an interview. And I was so proud of it. He said, if Ruta Lee had been playing Molly Brown on Broadway, it would still be running.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And that, to me, was the finest compliment I ever had. Another one of the finest compliments that brings a chill to my spine, kind of like telling the story of my grandmother, was I had been away from my favorite theater in the country, which is Casa Mañana in Fort Worth.
Oh, that's in Fort Worth, yeah, because I lived in Dallas for 20 years. I remember going down there.
Oh, yes. And I had been away for a year or something, because I played there for like 40-something years every year. And I was doing Hello, Dolly, and I made the entrance in the second act down the Harmonia Garden stairs to Hello, Louie. Well, hello, Charlie. It's so nice to be back home where I belong. The entire audience stood up and gave me a 5-minute ovation.
Wham!
Our orchestra conductor stopped midstream with his baton in the air. Joe Stecco was the Silver Eagle, I called him. He had to put down his baton, and he joined the audience in applause.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it brought tears to my eyes, and I thought, how the hell do I start this all over again, you know? But it was the most wondrous theater experience I've ever had, and I will go to my grave thanking God that it happened.
And that you reached so many people on such an intimate level, that's just...
Yes, isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? Well, that's one of the things about the theater that I love, and I didn't realize that I was doing it, but when I look back, I know that I did it in every house I think I ever played, that I try to touch eyes at least once during the entire performance with everybody in the audience, every person. And I try to sort of personalize, this performance is for you. And I guess it works because people identify with me as a friend rather than just a personality.
Well, that plus you bring all those years of experience and background, and wow, all the stuff, folks, you're going to have to find about in the book, because we're just scratching the surface here.
Oh yes, it's a fun read. I'm
yes,
glad
it is.
You said that it was. It's a short read. You can read it fast, which is nice. And it's available. I guess we should tell your friends. Of course, at any bookstore you can order it, but the fast way is Amazon.com.
Oh yeah, for everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, why don't we get to the one topic I know you're chomping at the bit to get to? Tell us all about the Thalians.
Oh, boy. Well, a group of young actors back in 54 and 55 decided they were tired of being called hard-drinking, pot-smoking asses that had nothing to contribute to society. And they said, we get together and have drinks and hang around the piano and sing and all of that good stuff, tell jokes. Why don't we put something together for an audience, sell tickets, and make some money for a worthwhile charity? And who do they send out to find a good charity but Jane Mansfield and Mamie Van Doren?
Okay.
Between the two of them, their breast sizes were 80. They were enormous in the boob department, and we sent them out, and they came back to the meeting. I said we, and it wasn't we, because I didn't join the organization until 5 years after that. But they came back to the organization and said, well, all the good diseases have been taken.
Oh, God!
But they found a gentleman, a great doctor, who was dealing with children, emotionally disturbed children. And he described that kind of a child as a rotting apple in a barrel that can infect the entire barrel if he isn't fixed. And so we adopted the emotionally disturbed child as our kind of motto and for what we were working. And we raised money by doing events every year that were fabulous all-star events. And 18 years later, we built the first building that went in at the big Cedars-Sinai complex in Los Angeles. And it was called the Thalians Community Mental Health Center. And we grew from the care of emotionally disturbed children all the way through people to geriatric people. And it was quite a building and a facility for daycare and outpatient care, inpatient care. Quite wonderful.
I get the idea you're kind of focusing on vets these days?
Yes. Many years later, we noticed that we had missed something terribly, that was a gaping hole that needed to be fixed, and that was the plight of the returning veteran. These beautiful, young, marvelous people, men and women that are willing to put their lives on the line for America, no matter what hellhole we sent them to, and then they come back to the United States and somehow sometimes fall through the cracks, especially when it comes to mental health. And so we teamed up with UCLA's Operation Mend. OpMend heals the broken and fractured bodies of our returning vets, and we Thalians try to heal the broken and fractured mind and spirit of our gorgeous young people. And I'm very proud of what we've done. We've raised many, many millions, I would say somewhere in the vicinity of about $40 million for our beautiful people that needed help, and especially now we're concentrating on the veterans. So if any of your listeners are of a mind to and have, $5 or as I said, $500,000, go to our website, which is the Thalians, THALIANS.org, not .com, but .org.
Yeah.
And you can read about us, what we do, how we do it, and all of the beautiful stars that we have honored all through the years. And then when we honored people from Frank Sinatra through Debbie Reynolds, through Liza Minnelli, through Whoopi Goldberg. We look for people that are not only dazzling on the stage or the screen, large or small, but that dazzle us with their performance philanthropically as well. And boy, you'll read all about us in the Thalians, and I'd be happy to have you take a look.
I second that emotion again, folks. Yeah, because it is a worthwhile cause to look at, and it kind of seems like mental illness and mental health is a big, big subject these days. It's kind of like an issue that was waiting for its time, and its time seems to be here.
You know, we're dealing a lot with drug abuse in the earlier Thalians. And I've got to tell you that I got to a point of where I said, okay, we're doing the best we can, but these are people who have chosen to play with drugs. Our returning veterans didn't choose to hit a bomb or get shot at or be in a mishap in a helicopter. They didn't choose it. They may have chosen to join the military, but they didn't choose to be put in a position where they will be hurt. And it's up to us Americans. We have the best of everything in the world, and somehow we slip up on doing the best for our returning vets.
I agree with you 1,000%. And you've gotten a lot of support from the Hollywood community over, 70 years, you said?
Yes, we're just about 70. In a year and a half, we're going to be 70 years old. And I'm so proud of us. Oh, Les, I mean, to think that this group of young actors, some of whom have gone to meet their reward in heaven, I'm still here, thank God. But we've done a great deal with our lives and with our celebrity in using it to make life better for other people. But of course, who do we turn to but our fellow Americans? Not people in the industry, but people who have generous hearts, and some have deep pockets, some have shallow pockets, but whatever they've given us, I'm so grateful, because Americans are the most generous people on the face of this earth, and we must not forget ever, those of us who are asking for it, to say thank you, thank you, thank you.
That's the Thalians.org, folk, in case you forgot. Well, you mentioned a number of people who participated in the Thalians over the years, and you mentioned most of the Rat Pack. We never did spend a minute or two talking about your experiences with Frank and Dean and the guys. What was it like to work with the Rat Pack?
It was one of the greatest blessings I ever had, because I laughed through the whole thing. And I think you know, Les, that my favorite thing in life is laughter. I mean, that I wish everybody laughter, because it's good for your health, it's good for your heart, it's good for your soul, you know.
As Mark Twain once said, against it, nothing can stand.
You're right, and he was right, and bless him, and God blessed us with his works. But I have to tell you that Frank Sinatra was one of the kindest and most generous people on the face of this earth. He and Debbie Reynolds, in my opinion, could not be topped when it came to generosity. Not just of the pocketbook, but of the soul and the spirit. I loved him with a heart and a half. Dean Martin was, to me, the funniest man God put on this earth, innately the funniest and the dearest. He would come up with a line when tensions were running rife because we're running late or the scene isn't going well or whatever. Oh,
yeah. Tell the folks what movie we're talking about.
Oh, we're talking about a film called Sergeants 3 with Dean Martin, Sammy Davis, Peter Lawford, Joey Bishop. Who'd I leave out? Well, the Crosby Boys and all of the comics from Las Vegas were in it.
I have to say, it's hardly. It seems like everybody was in that one.
It was such fun, and if ever, as I was saying, the tensions were running a little high, Frank was big on generosity but short on patience.
Okay.
Like me, you know.
Oh yeah, one take Sinatra.
That's it. Dean would come up with a line that would crack everything wide open, and laughter would reign supreme. And he was a delicious, adorable man. And, of course, I was treated like everybody's kid sister or one of the daughters or something, you know. And so I never had an affair with any one of them, damn it. Just think of the books I could have written.
Yeah, really.
And you know, when we're up on location in Kanab, Utah, where I'm going to go, by the way, for as a guest, signing autographs and pictures and whatnot at the end of August, I believe, early September. What a beautiful place that is up in Utah. It's God's country, but because the canyons are there and the beautiful mountains and the meadows. And Frank would have a fleet of ladies come up to entertain the boys, and I would be sent to bed, and it was Sammy Davis's job to walk me to my room every night. So I missed all the...
Oh, what a tough job.
Yeah. Thank you. Gee, he was wonderful. The only thing that really pissed me off is that he wore the same size gun belt that I did, and he could fit into my jeans. Not with me in them, but he could fit into my jeans.
And that was Sammy Davis?
Sammy Davis, an adorable, gifted, talented, wonderful human being. Just wonderful.
Well, one lady we should probably, pay homage to is your, I guess, partner for many years, Debbie Reynolds.
Oh, Debbie was God sent. She was truly an angel on earth. I don't mean that she was all that fastidious in her humor and what she did. She was fabulous, and she is the one that sort of made me a heavy-duty character in the organization. We had Hugh O'Brien was our first president, and then Margaret White.
Does his Hopi program still exist?
I think it does.
So I interviewed him once a long time ago, and of course he was really, really proud of that.
Yes, he was. God bless him. He started that after he was in Thalians. And then Margaret Whiting followed him, a singer, Margaret Whiting, and then Debbie Reynolds, and then Donald O'Connor, and then Ruta Lee. And they each served either a year or two or whatever. I served as president for 40-something years, and then got boosted up to chairman of the board, and I am now chairman of the board emeritus, and still doing it. In fact, I have a Thalian meeting next week. So we're still raising funds, as you know now, for our veterans, and I miss Debbie terribly, because she would kind of she knew everybody to start with. I mean, she was a very young star. And so she grew up in the industry, and she knew everybody, and she had phone numbers, so it was easy enough to get people to come and do at the organization. And it didn't matter whether it was I would call on Angela Lansbury because I knew her. She became, one of our people. I called on Lucille Ball. She was one of our people. But it was Debbie who got Frank Sinatra originally, and everybody who followed him, because they knew her and they blessed her. And it was that with our organization, too. I think people admired Debbie and myself for hanging in there and doing, what we needed to do. So, well, it's hard now, though. Les, I've got to tell you, today's generation of young people are not the same as the good stars of old that we could call, whether it was Bob Hope or Jack Benny or whoever we could call, and they would come and do. Nowadays, it's kind of like, well, not the star, but the coterie of management. Or what's in it for me? Okay, I'll come, but I'll need a table of 12. I will need a private plane to bring me in from New York. I will have to also bring my manager and my arranger, and there will be a Rolex watch, that kind of thing. Well, then you're not working for charity. You're just working to do an event at that point.
Yeah, self-promotion.
Exactly. So it's been very, very difficult, and I had a very hard time finding somebody to replace either myself or Debbie. Very difficult. So people in the industry are just not that willing to take on the responsibility. So I don't know what's going to happen, but Lord knows I'm trying, and we're still going, and we're still raising money, and we have an event coming up in December, that a beautiful dinner dance honoring Gary Sinise that will take place on December 2nd, and if anybody wants, they can go to our website and find out about coming to Hollywood and coming to our event at the Bel Air Country Club. Woo, woo, that's pretty sloppy.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Now, my next question is really, I guess, a little bit off. What questions do you wish I had asked and didn't get to?
I'm glad you didn't ask about my housewifely skills. I'm glad you didn't ask about, do I know what to do if the car dies on me? I know nothing about that stuff. Let's see, what else am I glad you did? About my farming skills, I know nothing. But you did ask me all the right questions, and I did get to tell you that I just love people.
You love life. It comes through in every syllable.
I do. My husband used to say she enjoys things so, and she enjoys people, and she will introduce people on an elevator to each other. God forbid they should have a bad ride. And he was so right. I truly am one of those that walks down the street smiling at everybody, nodding hello, and sometimes they look back because they probably think I'm a hooker trying to get business, but I love smiling, and I sort of feel like if I can gladden anybody's heart, even for 12 seconds, with a smile or a hello or a comment on how cute they look or how nice their tie is or whatever, why not?
Really?
Why not? It's you never know what kind of load somebody is carrying, what kind of baggage they're toting. And if you can lighten the load for just a few seconds, do it.
Hey, that's what I try to do all day long myself, especially with my wife. She has a stressful job. She's a nurse. Oh, which does lead me to the question that I didn't get to. Tell us a little bit about your husband. Oh,
I wish he was still here. I had 46 glorious years with him. And
tell him who his name was.
Webb Lowe. Webster Lowe. Isn't that gorgeous? Sounds like he should be an author.
It does.
Books like that. But I met him in a wonderful way. I was doing a charitable thing by raising money for the Thalians. I had been asked by the LPGA to appear as their guest star at either the opening or the close of the season in Naples, Florida. And I had been picked up in a private plane in Miami and then flown over to Naples, where I rode in the parade with the mayor and went to the thing, did everything, my movie star thing, pulled out the eyelashes and put them on and got the feather bow out, and got pretty. And then now it was time to go back to work in Dallas, where I was doing a play, and they had given me an extra day off so that I could do this event. And I wasn't feeling well. I was tired, and I didn't have a stitch of makeup on. I had a babushka tying up my hair. I was carrying a fur coat because it was cold in Dallas but hot in Naples. And they flew me back to Miami. I ran across the tarmac. I went up to American Airlines, and the girls took pity on me and said, Miss Lee, we'll pre-board you as soon as the flight is cleaned up. It's a turnaround flight from Dallas. Just wait, and we'll let you on. And I was leaning on the counter thinking, all I want to do is get on the plane and pull down a pillow and sleep because I've got to do a play tonight. And as I was leaning on the counter, I looked down the hall, and I saw a great pair of Gucci loafers coming down the hall. And I looked up a little further, nice gray slacks with a crease in them. I looked up a little further, a double-breasted jacket with gold buttons. Woo, I thought, this is no goat roper. This is somebody special. I look up a little further, and there's this gorgeous, craggy face that's a cross between Clint Eastwood and Lee Marvin and Peter, oh Jesus, I just thought it was fabulous. And I thought, oh my God, and he's coming towards me, and right past me and down the hall. And I thought, oh shoot, ships that pass in the night. They pre-board me. I've got all my stuff. I always ask for the bulkhead seat, and I've got all my stuff sitting in the next seat next to me. And I'm pushing stuff under my seat. And I see the same pair of shoes standing there. And I look up, and he said, oh, is this seat taken? And I said, for the last time in my life, no. And he said, hello, my name is Webb Lowe. And I said, hello, my name is Ruta Lee, and we should be married. Because then my name will be Ruta Lee Lowe, and we could open a Chinese laundry. Well, he went to his grave pissed at me that we didn't have a laundry 46 years later. But that was my gorgeous husband. We talked all the way to Dallas. I forgot that I was tired. I invited him to the show. He couldn't come to that one. But I got to my dressing room, and it was filled with beautiful yellow roses saying, sorry he couldn't make this week that he was there. But he'd catch up later on, and he did. He caught up with me in San Diego like a month later or something when I was playing Irma La Douce. But it's a wonderful romance, and it continued to be a romance forever and ever. And it was his second marriage, and amazingly enough, his wife, ex-wife, and I became very nice friends. And we were good. He was married to her for some 20-odd years, but we had a 46-year marriage. So obviously it worked very, very well.
Yeah.
And I was blessed. And I know that you are blessed now, and just say thank you, God, every day that you've got a beautiful bride.
I do that quite a lot. In fact, I feel very blessed with life in general.
Good for
Grace
you.
is at the center, but where we live and what we do and all this, I'm a very happy man, I have to say.
Isn't that nice?
Overdue in my case. I've had a lot of pain and heartache throughout the years. Not quite like Grace, but it's finally here.
But you found each other, and you will be good to each other and be that wonderful salve that heals.
You hear that, Grace?
So come rub it on him, darling.
Well, she's at work at the moment, but I'll tell her about all this. Well, she'll hear this interview, so.
Yes, of course she will.
Well, folks, you already knew that Ruta Lee is a classic singer, dancer, actress, and now you know she's a storyteller with lots of stories to tell. And we just, like I say, scratched the surface on such a wide variety of subjects. Yeah, maybe we should come back and do this again sometime if you're game.
I would be very proud to be with you and your listeners again. I'd be so happy. Thank you for the lovely invitation. Thank you. Have a beautiful summer. God bless you. And remember, you have an open invitation at Casa Lee in Hollywood to come and have a short snort.
I appreciate that. Well, before you...
Well, thank you, my dear friend. I'm blessed to have you as a pal, and All I can do is wish you both the greatest life ahead of you.